20 years later, and we've got ourselves The Devil Wears Prada 2. It's never too late for a sequel. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm talking about The Devil Wears Prada 2. I was able to see the movie early. These are going to be my honest, spoiler-free thoughts on the film. Before I get into this, hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on this movie if you've seen it, your expectations if you've not yet watched it, and of course subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified for all of my future videos. But I want to give you some background, some history with my personal relationship to the original Devil Wears Prada film before I get into this review. I've seen it twice now. The first time was in 2020. I was fine on the movie, but I rewatched it 6 years later this past week leading up to viewing the second film, and I had a whole new appreciation for it. I bumped my score up significantly. It is an amazing movie, genuinely, especially for the genre. And so going into the sequel 20 years later, expectations were low, I'll be honest. Most times when a sequel comes back this many years later, it's hard to get too excited because we've seen it happen and fail time and time again. Most recently, I think, is like Gladiator 2, where it's been like 20 years, you do a sequel and it just falls flat. So that was kind of the expectation going in, albeit the original director's back and the four main stars of the first film are back, and they've all grown a ton in fame. Obviously, Meryl Streep was already huge when she did The Devil Wears Prada, and she got nominated for an Oscar for that first movie, but she's back here. She's just as big as she was then, but Tucci's bigger, Emily Blunt's gotten significantly bigger, and of course Anne Hathaway has won an Oscar since then. So everyone in this movie is an A-lister. The four main stars are huge actors in Hollywood, and they didn't miss a beat reprising these roles. They all stepped back in seamlessly. In fact, the movie as a whole, I thoroughly enjoyed, guys, and I'm gonna have a lot of good things to say about. So let's just dive in. I'm excited, okay? This is how you do a sequel all these years later. It retains major key elements of the first film, notably the fashion industry presence, right? It's chic. It's got needle drops, like Vogue is played. That's no surprise there. And so there are plenty of needle drops that feel like you're still in the 2000s, you're in the fashion industry. They add sort of the upbeat pace of the film, never misses a beat there, but it actually adapted to the times to have some pretty relevant social commentary on the industry as a whole, not just fashion, the journalism side of things, especially with Andy's character played by Anne Hathaway. You see how she has to adapt on the fly, and that kind of opens the door to a larger conversation just about the current state of journalism in our world today, and how not just journalism, but a lot of major fields are trying to consolidate, almost have a shift to where, hey, we don't have to hire as many people. That way we can save money. We can maybe use AI, dabbling in that a little bit. So the movie touches on all those aspects, but it really emphasizes how human touch and the human experience is what's most important and what makes us all stand out at the end of the day. And so I really like the approach they had with the journalism piece, because the first film, very fashion heavy, obviously leading up to Paris in the third act, but this movie really dug into the journalism aspects, and I was really on board with all that. And with the journalism side of things, it taps into sort of the business elements and ownership of Runway at large. That entire aspect of the film reminded me a lot of Succession, which is a phenomenal TV show, but not just because they're talking about ownership of companies and who might buy said company, but even the way certain moments were shot were like shaky cam, handheld with zoom ins, and I was like, this feels very Succession to me in the best way possible. When it comes to the performances themselves, I think Meryl Streep's a powerhouse yet again. Like I mentioned earlier, she was of course nominated for lead actress in the first film. She doesn't miss a beat here. In fact, all the characters are actually given a lot more depth in this movie. When you wait 20 years, you hope these characters have gone through some change, and certainly they have. You get to explore that. I appreciate how we get to see more of a human side to Miranda Priestly. There's a moment in the film, she's out on this vacation of sorts, a weekend getaway, and Andy Sachs is there, and you gotta get to see them just have a human conversation. It was nice to see that side of Miranda and know, hey, there's some humanity in her, and she's not just on the go 24/7 business oriented. Like, we get to explore more of that. Same with Andy. We see her trying to find a new apartment and exploring her romance life as it's had its ups and downs, as evidenced through the first movie with the two gentlemen. But this movie, there's another romantic flame perhaps that they get involved with. So it's interesting to see where all the characters resume their lives and how they still have some of the same problems they're dealing with in the first movie, but they're still working through things as well, right? Emily Blunt's character, one of the most fascinating to me in this new movie because of where she's at. And as sort of the mystery unravels, we see what ultimately led her to where she is today. I don't want to say too much for those who haven't seen it, but roles have definitely changed since that first movie. However, my favorite character still is Nigel, played by Stanley Tucci. He is the man. He always just has a line that's going to make you smile, laugh, chuckle, whatever it may be. He can pull on the heartstrings. And I like to see how we get more of the dynamic of him and Miranda. Obviously, in the first film at the very end, Miranda kind of screws him over a little bit, but he's still loyal to her in this film. And seeing the two of them growing a deeper understanding of each other the longer they work together, I appreciate it as well. So they're just like strengthened character dynamics here. It elevated a lot of those relationships in the sequel, and it brought the energy. It doesn't feel like a rehash of the first movie. A lot of times sequels, especially this many years later, just feel like a rehash or replay of the greatest hits of the original movie, and that's not at all the case here because, like I said, fashion is still at the core of this movie, so it retains that from the original, but it steers us in a new direction with the business side of things, with journalism and sort of this commentary on corporations at large in our world today, and I was eating it all up, honestly. Like, this movie flew by to me. I think it's technically longer, about 10 minutes longer than the original Devil Wears Prada. Didn't feel that way at all. Flew by. Felt like an hour and a half to me easily, and there were plenty of callbacks. If I had to knock the movie a bit, I would say it got a little too callback/reference heavy early on, where it was like, hey guys, this is the Devil Wears Prada. Remember this? This was in the Devil Wears Prada. We said this line. This character made this joke. There's this bit. So it got a little full of itself in like the first 25 minutes where it could be a little off-putting. You're like, okay, we get it. We can kind of settle into this world now. A lot of legacy sequel of sorts, or films that come out, 20 plus years after the original, feel obligated to remind fans of the original source material. It is a good thing to do, but it could be a little overkill at times. Also, keep your eyes peeled for some fun cameos from athletes to people in the fashion industry to musicians. I was like, wow, is that who I think it is? Oh, shoot, I didn't know they were in this movie. I didn't know they were going to perform in this movie, so I was really shocked by a lot of sort of big names they were able to get in the movie, and that just made it feel even more real. But in the end, I think fans of the original will really enjoy The Devil Wears Prada 2. I can't say it surpasses the original, what sequel really does, but it's arguably right there neck and neck with it. Again, I have no nostalgic attachment to the original film. I didn't grow up on it. I know a lot of you guys watching probably did. It might be your favorite movie of all time if you're watching this. That's not the case for me, but I still highly enjoyed the first film on rewatch. So going into this, I can say confidently, every actor steps right back into their roles without missing a beat. There's a lot of fresh energy here, so it doesn't feel like slop, where some sequels are just lazy. That is not the case here. It stands entirely on its own, making for a pretty fun double feature that's chic in the fashion industry, that's highly stylized, but also has some relevant social commentary on just the current corporate world in America today. So I enjoyed this one thoroughly. It's probably in my top 5 of the year. I'd probably go 5 or 6 out of the 16 movies I've seen, but I can't recommend this enough, especially if you're a fan of The Devil Wears Prada. You will probably eat this movie up if I had to guess. But those are just my honest thoughts on The Devil Wears Prada 2. Let me know yours down below if you've seen the movie. If you haven't, let me know what you're thinking. Are you going to see this one or not? Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But thank you guys, as always, for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.